No, I'm sorry. Scruffy. I haven't been
Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 9 a.m. briefing meeting. It is 9:03. It's August 22nd, 2023. Let the record reflect that all 5 commissioners are present and our executive management committee. We're going to try to get through. We have made some adjustments to the briefing agenda. We are delaying item 2B and item 2G on today's agenda to future dates, just to get the business done that we need to get done this morning and then be able to move on to other items. So we will start off with Mount Zeracor and Kyle Twick.
Good morning. So we just have a relatively short briefing for you. We have to update everybody. This is a requirement that we do every year to amend our current 2023 Transportation Improvement Program. So we do an annual update every year once we get a little further into the year to just make sure the board is aware of how the projects are progressing and how the funding is going and what adjustments need to be made.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. Appreciate the time. This is one of the 2 touches on the transportation program. We will be back again in October with the 6-year plan. So we'll cover our longer vision of the transportation system. This is really, like Kyle said, an update of where this year went and where we're at. Do you have my presentation by chance? If you don't, it's not a huge deal. I can talk through it.
That's the actual document as opposed to the presentation.
Ron is controlling remotely, so.
Gotcha.
Well, I'll just start talking through it a little bit. The first thing I'll just mention that we always kind of mention is our leveraging of other funding sources. And our current program is a $30 million program. Of that, only $7 million is county dollars. That's a 4-to-1 leverage ratio, a little better than that. So we're pretty pleased with that. We're always shooting for that 3.5 to 4 when we come out to the amended with the final numbers.
That's it. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. And you can see well, this is the urban. The urban portion you can see is 7 million, rural's 12. A lot of that is because the phase of Bigelow we're doing is considered rural right now. So that's why that number is so much larger than the urban number. You can see we got a pathway project, the traffic safety, that's a couple of different grants that we received. The bridge construction is primarily Euclid and some smaller bridges up in the north part of the county that we're working on. And the stormwater, as you might imagine, is primarily West Terrace. Next slide, please. So this is the one I was talking about. This is the breakout of the dollars in terms of where we're getting our money from for the transportation program. And again, out of that $30 million program, 7 is county, 12 is federal. We have a lot of federal money in this year's program, 7 state, and the local dollars that you can see there. But the other, actually, that's Burlington Northern. That's their contribution primarily to the Euclid Road Bridge. Next slide. These are bigger projects this year and just kind of an update on where they're at. Bigelow 2, the last phase of Bigelow is well underway. Doing a lot of earthwork. They're getting ready to put in. There's a couple of large culverts that are put in with this phase of Bigelow, and they're working on those. 57th Avenue, if you've been up on the South Hill, is paved out and they have the striping down, so we're in good shape on that one. Lincoln is moving along. It's got a sewer in it, so that took a little time. There were some utility issues they ran across, but they're getting through it. And they've got concrete in and they've got about half the rock in. So that one's doing well to get wrapped up this year. Columbia up in Northwood, they based that in and they're getting ready to top it come the end of the month here. So that one also will be wrapped up. That one's been moving very quickly. We've got Inland on as a prime on that. They've been doing a great job. Euclid Road Bridge, we're still tracking to get that one open, substantially complete by the end of the year. Thinking probably late October, early November timeframe. And last but not least, West Terrace, they have phase 1 done and we're going back out. We're going to rebid phase 2. The bids were relatively non-responsive and very high. So we're going to pull out the pipe and do a procurement on that separately to save a little money and then also rebid it in probably the next month or 2. Hopefully going to get some better bids on that one. I think the market's tightening up a little bit and that should work in our favor. So that's the big projects. Happy to answer any questions anybody might have. Okay, thank you very
No,
much.
thank you. It's been a good construction season, so
Yes.
I've been up at 57th and we're getting the center mediums back in, so
Yeah.
it's looking good.
Yeah, nice to put them to bed before school starts as much as possible and get out of the way of the buses and the kids.
Yeah,
Should be good. Okay, thank you.
thank you. Okay, so Doug, we're gonna delay you guys and let the undersheriff go.
Awesome. So the first thing we have is it's a lease agreement for new office space for our Safe Streets Task Force, and Sergeant Aaron Meyer is here. He's the supervisor of the task force, and kind of go over what they do and the history and why we need to move.
Yeah, so I'm Aaron Meyer. Spokane Regional Safe Streets is a task force. It's combined of Spokane County Sheriff's Office, Spokane Valley Police Department, Spokane Police Department, U.S. Border Patrol, and Washington State DOC. Our primary focus is on gangs and upper level drug traffickers here in the Spokane region. We have great partnerships with DEA and FBI, and that's who we primarily work with when we take cases to a federal level. We're a proactive and reactive unit, so we operate in plain clothes. We go out and try and purchase drugs and firearms off the street, and then we also have a proactive unit where we go out in patrol cars and try and do proactive enforcement when it comes to some of our gang violence in the area. Right now, we're housed with FBI. In order for our task force to grow and us to bring on some other partners, we need to expand. And so we have a lease agreement that's on the floor above where we're at right now that will allow us to grow. The cost for this will not, no cost will be incurred by the county. This will all come out of our DUFB account. We also receive funding from BirdJet grant funding, and we're also a HIDTA task force, which is Spokane is being designated by the federal government as a high intensity drug trafficking area. So we also receive money from HIDTA. So the lease it'll be a 5-year lease, roughly about $242,000 for that 5 years, which will just come right out of our DUFB account.
The lease has been gone over by legal and by risk management.
So the lease is still in process of going
Yes.
over. Foster Garvey represents the management company. They reached out. They have a conflict that the county needs to sign a 1.7 waiver on in order for our office to negotiate with them. Foster Garvey has done a little bit of land use and other municipal stuff for the county. It's unrelated to this, so there really are no substantive issues. But given the timeline that I know the sheriff's office needs on this, I'm going to ask that the board pass this resolution allowing me to sign off on this RPC waiver today, so that the attorneys in our office can start hashing out the fine print on this lease agreement with Foster Garvey. So that's the only kind of added rub to this one. But aside from that, I think it's a pretty straightforward lease agreement.
Are we gonna add it to the 11 o'clock, or do you wanna do it right now?
I think, let's see, we have, I think we can add it to the 11 o'clock.
And will I need to open it up for,
We will, yes.
do we just wanna do it right
We
now?
can do it, we can certainly do it right now. Jeannie, can you print off one that's not back to back?
The sign on
Right
the
up
back
there.
of that stack.
Right here?
Yeah, it's on the backside, I
Do you
think
have copies of them,
Uh,
or
yes.
commissioners?
Josh and I have already signed off on it.
Is it here?
It's right, no, it's right there.
No, but, right, but just for everyone to look at
Oh.
prior to us. I mean, I see
Prior
what
to
the
sign.
resolution says. You guys have.
Sure.
Thank you,
Mildred?
thank you, Madam Chair.
I've already read it.
So there's no additional cost, or you're just using new grant funds to help pay for the extra space?
So we're using grant funds that we currently get and our DUFB account. So our DUFB account, our seizure account is sitting pretty well. We can cover the 5-year lease with no issues.
So are you still gonna be co-located with the federal and other?
So we're gonna
partners?
be just a floor above them.
Okay,
And so FBI will be the floor below us and the building right next to us is the EA. And we still have great working relationships with both entities.
Any other questions? I will take a motion.
Okay. Madam Chair, I move to approve a resolution in the matter of authorizing the Spokane County Prosecuting Attorney to execute a waiver under RPC 1.7 in conjunction with the Spokane County Sheriff's Office lease of office space at 1116 West Riverside Avenue.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the resolution just stated. Since this is an item that we need to take, we're doing today, I need to open up for public testimony. Is there anyone that would like to testify on this motion? And no one here, no one online, second call?
No one online.
Okay.
He said no one.
Yeah, no one online. Okay, thank you. Seeing no one, third and final call.
No one online.
Okay, and no one in the room, so I will close the public testimony and call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, we will just get that signed right away. Okay, so that takes care of that one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can take off if you want. You can hang out. He has
You're welcome to stay.
he has actual work to do.
You're like-
Thank you.
You're kicking them out. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so the next item will be the 11 interlocal agreements with the school districts for our SRD program. I met with the board a couple months ago via Zoom while I was out on the road, and we kind of talked about restructuring or going after more costs for this program. So I met with every superintendent or at least a representative from all the schools. We chatted about that, and I let them know that this was coming and these costs were going to increase, and they were okay with that. The concerns were for this next school year. Budgets have been set and everything, and it was a brand new conversation. And so I kind of laid out what the 2023-2024 costs, what my idea what they would be, and I was basing the cost off of a 5-year deputy, which is a step 5 deputy in the contract, which is what we call a top step deputy, off half the salary, half the benefits, and then all of the specialty pay included in that. And I kind of gave them what that cost would be, and it's a little higher than what they were expecting. So what we came up with was a compromise to, over the next school year, it would be half the cost of the salary, the specialty pay, and the clothing allowance would all be included in that. And they'd pay all the specialty pay and half the salary. And then over the next 3 years, we would roll half of the benefits into the contract as well. And so over the next 3 years, the contract will go up to where they will be paying for basically half of everything. And so right now, what the contract says is it's like 49,000 and some change, Randy, if I'm wrong, and that does include half of all salary, and it includes the DSA contract raise of 2.25% for next year as well. So we took half of this year's salary and half of next year's salary and combined them, and so that's what the contract is for the 2023-2024 school year, and then it'll change and go up. We'll start recapturing more of the benefit costs next few years, if that's acceptable to the commission. That's the compromise we came up with. All of the districts were comfortable with it, and there's really no pushback on that, except for changing it this year. Yeah.
Commissioner French is first.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with what you're presenting and stuff, but 9 Mile is not included here. Is that because we've got that as a separate agreement? With,
That is, yes.
The trilateral, and this is just us and the school districts?
These are our deputies, and the 9 Mile is Stevens County deputy.
Okay.
And we talked about that yesterday, and that'll be included in our budget as well, so we need to amend that a little bit. So.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Waldron, did you have a?
oh, I just couldn't find that, but I found it in the packet. There's a lot of documents.
Yes. We need to
All right,
figure out how we
so
have everything
So they're gonna pay all the specialty pay
Yes,
and half the salary.
yes.
We continue to cover the benefits this year. And then in the 2 subsequent years or 3 subsequent?
3 years, we'll pace it out over 3 years, adding a third of the benefits every year.
Got it. Looks like the benefits are usually around. Oh, you have it broken up into 2 blocks, like 2 semesters almost?
Well, it's because of the contracts. So the school year covers basically 2 contract years, and so
Right,
it's the
right.
last half of this contract and the first half of the next contract.
Okay, so it's like 40,000 or so for benefits, so each year they'll be paying more into that to get to 20,000 of
Yes.
that, okay.
And it was a good meeting because it was
Well, it seems like a good compromise.
Yeah, and it was educational for them because they were a little shocked at what our benefits are, and they're used to the teachers and what their benefit package are, and so law enforcement has different things like left to contributions and uniforms and all this other stuff that they don't have. So it was a good educational meeting, and so they kind of saw really what we're supplying them, and I think they are all in agreement that they're getting a great deal, and it's a great partnership. So.
Excellent, thank you.
Can you remind me what the current arrangement is, or the previous one? What was the split before?
I think it was just half the salary.
It was just salary.
Just salary.
Only salary.
Yeah.
All right.
And then last year, we added the SRD specialty pay into it, and they agreed to cover that at full cost, so they're continuing to do that.
Great, and we'll see these next week on the agenda, or this afternoon.
I'm not sure, so that's, what my plan was to wait till we got all 11 contracts back, because the school boards all meet at different times, and so they can't sign, the superintendents can't sign the new agreement until they present it to their board, and some of those aren't until the last week of August, so I'm anticipating you'll get all, I mean, I could bring them all separately, but I'm anticipating you'll get all 11 sometime during the first part of September. That's acceptable.
Sounds good. Thank you, thanks for talking to them and negotiating that. Appreciate it. Okay, so you're still up next.
Yeah, and I thought Chief Ellis is going to be here, so you're going to get my really, really naive account of the air support unit. But essentially what this is we received a grant from Kathy Morris Rogers' office, and I can't remember, it's the BGA, OJP BGA award, and I don't even remember what that stands for, to be honest with you. And another problem is I left my computer out at the command post where I'm currently supposed to be, so. It's for $500,000, and it's for purchase or updating our helicopter. Essentially, right now we have 4 helicopters. They're all pretty old. I think you saw the briefing, so they're older than me, and they can't like when the temperature gets too hot, they can't fly. There's a lot of restrictions on the maintenance, the ongoing maintenance, the fuel costs, and all the different issues with them. And so we're proposing to add sell one of our Hueys and add a new helicopter to the fleet. The cost of the helicopter, the total cost of it's going to be about $3.1 million. We have to order it in advance, and it won't be ready for about a year. And so what the plan is if the board is willing to accept this grant, this $500,000 grant, we have an offer already to sell one of the Hueys, around $900,000. So that'll give us close to, or $1.4 million. The down payment, I believe, is around $1 million, and then they'll start building the aircraft. It won't be ready till sometime around 2025, and that's when the rest of the either the balance or a municipal lease agreement or something like that will be due. So this right here, what you're looking at right now, is just acceptance of the grant for the first $500,000.
Okay, I guess the question I have is if we accept this $500,000 grant, are we saying we're going to be doing all this other stuff? Because there's a lot of questions.
I know.
And BJA is Bureau of Justice Assistance.
There you go.
And OJP is Office of Justice Programs.
Thank you.
Google's a great tool.
I was going to Google on my phone. Maybe Randy can help with this a little bit. I don't know if the down payment is, I believe.
In reading the contract, it did not say it was refundable. That was how it was presented to us, but
Yeah,
in reading the contract, I did not see that in there, so there would be more questions from my standpoint that we'd have to make sure that we could get out of this, because it is, meaning the general fund would have to come up with a couple $1 million to do the payoff. Either that or we have to sell the Huey for more than for more than 900,000.
do you remember when the date to accept the grant was? Is
I
it?
do not know.
I think Chief Ellis had to leave town, and so I think he was planning on being here to talk about this, but
I think,
I
you know,
think,
for me, I would say, you know, just, that's a lot on the general fund when we know we're going into budget issues. And I think, you know, since you guys have started the program, there's been less reliance on the Air Force, which is good, but they also are there and available to help as well. And so when I was just out recently with the Air Force and their unit, you know, talking about how much less they've come in, you know, and they do have to get authority from, you know, from higher up, but they're still willing and able to help. And so I feel like there's a partnership there that we're kind of maybe missing out on a little bit. And so is that going to be to, you know, put more of a burden on our general fund when we can, you know, be using those resources? Because I know Kathy Morse Rogers' office has been very helpful in making sure they're there and available too for operations within the area.
and I don't think there's any, you know, desire to sever any kind of relationship with the Air Force. I think if we can strengthen that and have more resources, I think that's absolutely important. But I think it's important to note that they kind of have a different mission, and so I think for the missions that they are good at, or you know, that fit their general mission as the Air Force, like search and rescue and that type of thing, I think there's plenty of opportunity to have them help. What this helicopter will be available for is patrol work and police work mostly, and that's not something that they're good at, and that's not something that they tend to help with all that much.
And we have the smaller helicopter.
Yes.
That's not the Huey that we do that with as
Right.
well.
And that helicopter is about 50 plus years old, so it's aging, and there's issues with it, with maintenance and operation, and also there's limitations to when it can fly, and a whole host of issues. And with legislative changes and the way, you know, the police reform is going, the helicopter has been invaluable in following vehicles and suspects that we can't chase, and so there's been a ton of success stories with the patrol helicopter, and I don't see it going. I see it getting more to where we're going to need to use other resources, and that's okay. You know, I think it's okay that we change the way we police. I think that's okay. We just need to have the resources available and the equipment to do it, and this is a pretty key piece.
I guess for me, I'm sorry, I just keep asking all the questions.
It's a big dollar amount. I get it. Yeah.
But it's like, so then, you know, trying to understand what is replacing the Huey versus the patrol helicopter, and how it's all really integrated together as well. So I think for me, it's like, I want to know, what is this new helicopter really doing?
Okay.
What are we really replacing? You know, just all those basic questions of what are we really replacing? What are we enhancing? And how are we still partnering with the Air Force?
Absolutely. And I can tell you, we can get Chief Ellis, who's the commander of that unit, in here, and he can do a full air briefing. I know he sent me part of what he was going to do, but you know, it's.
You know, I understand.
Yeah, I am so far out of that it would be really bad for me to try to work my way through it. But I will find out when the grant is, you know, when the last day to accept, or the last possible time to accept the grant is, and we can get it back on the agenda, and we can get Dave in here to do a little bit more. Yes.
So, no, I appreciate that. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No,
Just those would be the questions that I have, you know, and knowing, you know, again, really seeing what is the dollar amount and how does this really, you know, play out.
Well, and that's good. I think that's why I'm here, is to find out what questions you all are going to have, and that way I can, you know, we can go back and we can make sure we answer for you next time we're there, so.
Any other questions? Just dive right in.
I think you have good questions.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
I
we need a strategic look, long-term, at the fleet and what the purposes are, the costs to maintain, the costs. Just with the tight, general fund budget we're looking at this year, we just have to be real strategic and think about purchases.
And I think another, one thing I haven't mentioned and something to also keep in mind is the Valley contract will cover half of this as well. So half of this purchase will be covered through the Valley, so, which is good. And I know they've been briefed on, the cost of a potential municipal lease agreement for pushing the purchase price out for a little longer. And I can't say they're accepting it, but they're aware of it. And so that is something also to consider for next time.
Okay, that which would be good, as part of that spreadsheet to look at. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, is
Thank-
that all?
I think that's all my stuff.
All your stuff?
Yep.
Okay,
I will head back out to the fire,
which one are you at?
the Great Fire out west.
Any updates for us this morning?
No, because the briefing is at 10, so I was hoping to get out there by then, and they'll give kind of a brief on what the updated activities are. And the rain's helping. It's raining a little bit more out there than it is here. So, and I think the weather patterns look good from the last briefing I got. So.
But you go.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Kevin, your home's okay.
Yeah, it is.
Good, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, that's gonna then take us back to Doug Chase.
Good morning.
Good morning, thank you for adjusting
Oh,
with
sure.
us.
Yeah, no, it's always fun to learn about all the other important stuff going on within the county. So never mind. I do have a presentation that hopefully is ready to pull up. We have an item on your legislative session to accept grant funds related to our Bear Lake Regional Park project. So Julie Neff, our landscape architect who's not here today, put together a really nice update on the project. So the first couple slides speak to the item that's scheduled to come before you. And the rest are just a nice little update, so I can stop short if you need to move, but I'll try to work through it really quick. So as you can see there on our first slide, we have the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant award of just under 1.4 million. That again is scheduled before you, and combined with our county match of just under 1.6 and a contribution of 5,000 through the Inland Northwest Adaptive Group, we're at just under 3 million for our project up at Bear Lake. Next slide, please. Again, this just shows our general area. And as a reminder, in spring of 2022, the board authorized staff to make that grant request of just under 1.4 from the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And again, we're excited to be moving forward. Next slide, please. Some photos on the ground. Next slide. Here's a picture of one of our fishing docks out there, and Bear Lake is earmarked or designated for youth and disabled senior fishing only for that particular lake. So you'll see that reflected. Next slide. And just popular activities. Next. Okay, and here we have again, you may recall the lake is surrounded in those two areas of the project with gabion baskets that are, 30, 40 plus years old and failing. So a big part of this project is to replace that with a more shoreline friendly fix, which you'll see here. Next slide. Again, more photos of the failing retaining walls, gabion baskets. Next slide. Temporary measures that we've taken to discourage use along that edge as much as possible while we've been working on the design and construction documents. Next slide, please. And you see the close-up of the project areas, and there's a shot of the baskets that are a big component of the project. We're looking to, again, remodel obsolete facilities, upgrade ADA features, integrate maintenance efficiencies, and improve wildlife habitat. Next slide, please. Okay, there's again, kind of a close-up rendering, phase 1 updates, center on renovating the shoreline, focus area east and west. And starting from the top of the page, we'll be replacing the gabion basket walls with a boulder and sand beach and ADA walkway. We'll replace existing undersized fishing pier with a deep water fishing pier further north, and then put in a new paddle launch area where the old fishing pier was, and a boat drop off and turnaround with paved ADA parking instead of the gravel ADA parking. So you can see the turnaround there in the graphic. The existing picnic shelter will be replaced with a new picnic shelter on site of the former caretaker's residence that used to be up on the hill. Next slide, please. Now we're looking at the west side. Again, from the top of the page, we'll restore the eroded areas shown in green to help improve habitat. Install 2 new low-maintenance accessible fishing piers, one north and one south. We'll add a paved ADA parking and paved pathways between the parking area and the park features. The gabion basket walls will become boulder and sand beaches to allow much improved water access. And we'll also add a swim dock. Next slide, please. So again, there's some neat photos there. Focus of the project is to improve the shoreline access, and we're excited to provide ADA parking and trails to the park features. Currently, there aren't any trails from the parking areas into the park, so that will be a significant improvement that's been requested many times over by folks with mobility challenges. Next slide, please. Here's a shot of the swim areas, and you can see the difference between the existing and what's proposed from a design standard. Should be a huge improvement. Next slide. Another shot, you can see some conceptuals of what the new fishing piers will look like. So we're looking to have, again, in total, three accessible piers, and you can see in the rendering there, they'll be designed more wheelchair friendly, where there's a lower cut there to help operate that fishing pole. Next slide, please.
Hey Doug, what are the native fish for Bear Lake?
The what?
What are the native fish for Bear Lake?
I think it's stocked well with trout, but beyond that, do you?
Native, I'm not sure, but yeah, it is stocked with trout, I think some bass. So
Okay.
Fish and Wildlife stock it every April.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll also be restoring some of the native plants and making some improvements to the wildlife habitat up there. Next slide. Okay, our schedule here, where we're at now, we're currently in the process of working through our design with the design team. We're wrapping up the construction documents. Kurt, Julie, and I meet weekly with our team as they're working to wrap those up. Our goal is to be applying for building and grading permits here in the early fall and be bidding out for constructions at some point in fall, mid to late fall. And our goal is for a 2024 construction start. And one of the things that we're looking at to really maximize use of our budget, and the site is accommodating, is we will look to close the entire park during the construction season. So we'll likely, our goal is to have that happen in 2024 so that we can be back open in 25, but that will allow significant savings in what would have been trying to work around having a portion of the park open. And this park has one primary access point, so it's very effective to be able to close it and provide a safe space for the construction during the construction. So again, just looking ahead, that's something that we'll of course work with our public information officer to help get the word out, website, all of that, but thought I would mention that early on as we're working through it. Next slide. I think there we are. Happy to answer any questions, and exciting project. We're really happy to see this coming together. As you know, we've been working on this pretty steadily, and are really pleased to have the grant success that we've had, and just can't wait to see that become a reality out there. It's a lot of excitement building from the community for the changes.
Yeah, no, I just say thank you, because I mean, we've been working on it, you've been working on it for as long as I've been commissioner, hoping to make it happen out there, so.
Very excited.
Yeah, okay, so that's exciting.
Great, yeah.
It's gonna be nice.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Take us to George.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Before I start, I just want to say to the community out west, all the communities impacted by fire, that we're thinking of you, and very appreciative of the rain today. So, and all you commissioners, your weekend and time that you spent, thanks for all your efforts there. It's a lot of work for the communities, and I know they appreciate it, and I know I appreciate it as well. So what I'm briefing today is regarding our urban consortium renewal. So this is a federal designation through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So in order for us to be able to receive our community development block grant funds, home funds, etc., every 3 years we're required to go back out to our communities. So for Spokane County, there's 12 urban consortium members throughout the county. That includes cities as large as the City of the Valley and cities as small as the town of Fairfield. And we asked them to renew their agreement with us to participate as part of the urban consortium. And so that's what you have before you. This is time for us to do our 3-year renewal for the next 3 years. And I provided just kind of a brief packet to show you all what the agreements look like. So you see the legal opinion on the front that's required as part of our packet that we send to HUD. And then on the back is a copy of that draft agreement. We've received almost all of our agreements back, but we were notified that there were some additional changes that were required. And those changes were really a regulatory citation. So Wes in the attorney's office has helped me out with that. On the second page of your handout, you'll see those items or those additions are noted in the blue color on that sheet. So I've reached out to all the communities, let them know that we need to re-sign that, and that's part of the overall packet that we submit to HUD. I do also want to, I mentioned earlier to both Scott and Commissioner French, that I felt really, I had a lot of trepidation reaching out to the city of Medical Lake at this time to say, I need you to re-sign this document, and just super grateful for Mayor Cooper and her response that they'll just get it done, even in this time. So just grateful for the leadership out there. And really, I think that this agreement, it's kind of a checkbox for the federal government and for us to be able to receive our funding. But I think it speaks to when we have times like this in our community, what it means to pull together and to support and help rebuild. So I'm really looking forward to opportunities that the Housing and Community Development Department can engage with these communities and find ways to help use these resources to rebuild.
I guess that's one of the questions for me is with the community development block grant money, I mean, obviously there's the committee that looks at that, who has representatives from all those communities, but are there opportunities for Medical Lake through that committee to look at getting some of the funds?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned that to Mayor Cooper in my email where I said, please, we're already thinking of you. We're thinking of different like strategies that we can use to, certainly for those individuals that lost their home that may not have fire insurance, what can we do to help offset some of those costs? There are some restrictions on income thresholds with the funding sources that we administer, but where appropriate, we absolutely, I'd like to definitely drive that way.
Any other questions for George?
Is there a deadline on when we need to get all of this into HUD?
Yeah, so we need to have it into HUD by next week. So it's a pretty tight deadline. There is, Wes identified that there's an option for a potential extension if needed. So certainly the events of the last several days pinches our timeline a little bit. So in the event that we need it, then we'll certainly ask for that.
If you have any issues with getting a hold of any of the mayors or any of them in the South County, let me know. Brennan and I can help facilitate that.
Great.
Because I think I've got most of the small towns in my district that would need to then redo that. So yeah, so we're happy to, if you need to just, yeah, yes, we can talk offline.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Okay, Scott, that's gonna take us to any executive session items or any other items, and then Ms. Denise.
I think we'll hold, we have nothing urgent on executive session today for the commissioners, so I think we can just jump right to that. I'm aware of anyhow.
Okay. Just gonna miscellaneous. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna have one as well after you.
Okay, so commissioners, in your packet, you have a letter that's been drafted up addressed to the Washington State Broadband Office. If you recall, earlier this year, the Spokane County submitted a grant request for broadband grant funds. It was done through Spokane County because we hadn't had quite all the organizational items set up for Broadlink, and it's our expectation that Broadlink will be submitting for future grant applications on behalf of Broadlink. This one was done on behalf of Spokane County. It was their round 2 of the ARP Infrastructure Acceleration Grants. The county, as you may recall, did not receive any of those funds. We were not awarded any of the funds. We did ask through Arian Schmidt, our executive director of Broadlink, for some of the scoring sheets and the criteria and actual scoring that was done. And there were some concerning things that we saw on it. We had a number of categories, which you'll see in the letter, where an individual would give a 0. And these were points that were, a lot of the other scorers on the scoring committee gave a full 7 points or a full 5 points or a full 6 points, and yet we had these outliers that appeared to have questions or comments that weren't really relevant to the grant evaluation and our application itself. So the letter is really meant to say, hey, there's some concerns about how the scoring was done. There appears to be either questions that were unrelated or comments that were unrelated. And so we're asking them to consider in their scoring, either not counting the outliers, which are done in some situations, or at least have an opportunity to come back to the applicant and ask questions to clarify what their 0-based score would have been. And Arian's joining us here, and she can probably add some additional context. I think
It's the same person that keeps dinging it. What's Janae Stark's problem here with us?
Not
And let's be
clear.
open, it's a public document. What's her issue?
We don't know because they didn't offer us that sort of information back. All we have is what was on the scoring sheets here. But of particular importance is the way the scoring worked, and they gave it back. If this person would have scored within the range of others, it would have, I think we were outside of 3 points or something.
2.54.
2.54. That's what left us below the line. If we would have gotten a consistent scoring throughout, we would have been in the eligible category to get the award. So it was a concern, and this is really a letter for you all to consider signing, to send back. It's meant to be we're not trying to take them to task, we're just trying to help allay or give some concerns and request for them to do a different approach going forward, and or at least give us the opportunity to have some questions answered or questions come back to us for clarification. This was a significant amount of money that this community lost out on.
So, why aren't we being more aggressive? I mean, this clearly demonstrates a bias of some sort. I mean, how can you, either she doesn't know what the hell she's doing, and I don't want to eliminate that as a possibility, or, you know, there's some other kind of bias, but I mean, she's totally out of sync with everybody else.
I mean, to call a PDA high risk,
I mean, it's nonsense.
Well, and that was one of the concerns, is the PDA didn't actually apply for this grant. Regardless of it, it's a very common vehicle that we use in Spokane County and have very great success with it. So,
but it's not
again,
even,
lack of
it's
understanding.
not just Spokane. PDAs exist all over the state.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we are going to send this letter, and I fully support the letter, I would like to add, one as the copies to this, Chris Anderson as our attorney, but also Bob Ferguson, and send it to the AG's office. I mean, this is pretty blatant. I see Mr. Anderson cringing over there.
I have no objection to any of that, certainly including the AG's office as a recipient, and we can do that. I, of course, would want to be copied on it as well. I'm not sure at this point what other avenues or remedies we've got on this. I do know that Jim has been looking into it. Maybe he and Arian have spoken about that. If there's a path forward after the letter.
Arian and then.
Yes, so some of this is really artifacting for precedents going forward. And one approach we did last year as a commissioner board, where we sent a letter of concern to Mr. Visconti, but we also CC'd all 15 state legislators in our concern that we were wanting Mr. Visconti to consider. That was very effective. And so in addition to the suggestions there, I know there's a number of state legislators that would be interested in this. And there's a number of other counties that were in our similar situation, although they got zeros on different ones. And this really could be an ignition point for other groundswells of counties just coming alongside saying, this really needs to be changed going forward, because we're not talking millions of dollars in the next year, we're talking $1 billion.
And the other thing that we were talking about was, seeing this and seeing how this happened, it's like, is there ways that we can talk to them about throwing the top score out and the low score out, and trying to equalize it in some way when somebody doesn't understand what a PDA is, because it's apparent that this lady doesn't understand what a PDA really is, and what we're accomplishing is much better than, again, all these individual cities trying to go after individual funds. We're doing it collectively. So it's...
Well, and also on here, what it was of concern to me is the broadband office spent months talking to providers for clarification and never once reached out to a county, and that seemed a little odd as well. So that's another to Commissioner Cuny's point.
Sorry, Amber was just ahead of you. I just want to make sure she...
Well, that's just what I was asking. When you said the WSBO took months of time to work with ISPs in challenge process concerns, so did we try and challenge
No, so
Or-
within this application, when an entity put in a proposal that an area needed broadband, there was an opportunity for internet service providers in the private sector to say, oh, wait a minute, no, we disagree with that, we're
Okay.
providing adequate service. And so, again, the broadband office delayed months the announcement of this to have one-on-one discussions with providers that had concerns with some of the applications. But again, never reached out to a county for some of these, I would say, more basic questions like, could you explain to us X, Y, and Z? And that just seemed to be a bit, confusing.
Was there though like with this particular process and scoring, is there any challenge or follow-up or anything that a county can do, like, as part of this process, run by the broadband?
Not during the scoring period. So
Right.
the only way we could have given clarification is if they reached out in a request for clarification. So it was closed to us until the
Right.
awards were announced.
And then we did follow up and did a after action,
Yes, and then a PRR of commerce for all
which is how we got
all
Got it.
360 scoring sheets.
Commissioner French.
So, as I remember, correct me if I'm wrong here, this department, State Broadband Office, is under the Department of Commerce.
Correct.
So then I would want to include Mike Fong as the copies on the letter, because he should be aware. And is there an appeal process?
I don't think so for this grant. Again, that's one of the things where we've missed out not only on this particular funding, but one of these scorers actually caused us detriment on the federal grant that we also missed. So it was a trickle down. So I think we've realized we've lost over $20 million in available funding. We want to make sure that this is made aware so that we don't put any more funding at risk going forward because of maybe odd approaches to scoring rubrics.
And I don't have a problem sending this to all our
That's a good
legislators.
idea.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think they should all be copied on it, so they're all aware.
Just on the first paragraph that says, the reasoning was unrelated to the scoring question. It seems to be either an area for clarification or a personal option. Is that supposed to be opinion? Okay.
We
got
had
it.
3 review, may I?
That's what I was thinking too, personal opinion.
Yep,
Gina might just want
yep.
to know that, so we can
I'll send
update
it.
this.
And then I would actually, ISPs, I can actually state what they are.
Yeah.
And we will spell out G. Chris
Could I ask just a little bit about the scoring committee? So who are these members of this scoring committee?
So that was actually asked when I did our post-review. All of them were from quasi state level. And that was actually one of the concerns, is there was no one on there that represented a local perspective. And that was something that the broadband office didn't feel was needed. So there are Public Works Board representative here, CURB board representatives here. The one that never scored is the grants person from Commerce. There is Washington State Broadband Office staff on here. And then I do forget who the other one was. So they were all from other state level entities. And there was concern by most of the counties that there were no county or more local level perspectives on these awards.
So they don't necessarily have any broadband background.
CURB and Public Works Board do give broadband awards. None of them, I would say, are directly telecommunications industry.
What does it mean when it says has lost out on 3 rounds of state and federal funding? You help me understand the 3 round piece.
Absolutely. So the first round was before I became involved. The county submitted for the round 1 of this. And we did do a proposal that was actually deemed ineligible at the time. So that was our kind of first, whoa, wake-up call. We did a lot of due diligence to make sure that our proposal going forward was eligible. The second round of funding was this one, which was a total of 12 million, opportunity lost. And then concurrent with this one was a federal grant through the NTIA that was $11 million. So all of those together, we have been passed over. And I did receive some almost similar startling news from NTIA from that post review, but that's a separate conversation.
Commissioner French.
Well, and just reading her comment and stating that the new PDA is not registered with MRSC. I served on that board for 10 years. There's no requirement that a PDA be registered with MRSC. MRSC is an advisory group. So, I mean, the lack of knowledge of this lady is just glaring. I just can't believe, I don't know what value she provided to the scoring on this thing, but boy, it certainly was knowledge.
So, because I want to make sure you guys are all okay with the tone of the email or the letter that will be going out, because we at the PDA board meeting, we talked about, I mean, we still need to work with the Department of Commerce and broadband office, but we also wanted to make sure we were giving factual information and, you know, on it, and, you know, and so hopefully they'll talk to us. I just want to make sure that everyone reads that as well.
I'm just asking the question whether we want to clarify that the 25 million does not all relate to this particular application. I don't know, if we're really zeroing in on this grant proposal and this individual who really was not in line with others and threw off our score, that might help be fully clear what the impact of that was. I'm not opposed to including 25 million with a little more clarification as to what phase 1, 2, 3 means,
Sure.
but
Well, it does say, has lost out on 3 rounds of state and federal funding totaling well over 20, so it's not saying that this is 25, it's the total of that, I mean.
I can put an asterisk and list the 3 things at the bottom, just so everybody's uber clear on what those 3 rounds were. The goal was to not attack people, but bring concern to process. And so there was a little bit of a delicate balance there, because process affected many, many counties.
Probably captured by my comments that I'm fine with it being much more aggressive. But I don't have any problem with signing this, and at least starting the process of trying to educate those that are above her.
So the word crippled, the first paragraph on the second page. Is that the right term?
I'm sorry, I needed to.
First paragraph, the last sentence, the scoring penalty further crippled the 5 rural towns of South.
Right, so again, having been at Spangle City Council last night, I would say that economic development, the ability for telework, remote learning, and again, I would say that was one of the stronger words I used, but it really is keeping them from resiliency and the desire for vibrancy that they're seeking.
Do you have a different word that you want to
I
suggest?
do know what other word to suggest.
Hampering, limiting,
I mean,
damaging. Let's bring out the thesaurus, but yeah.
I did the thesaurus, looking for some other ones that would be equally as descriptive, but I couldn't come up with a great
Thanks, God.
yeah, and
alternative.
probably crippling is better than damaging, because it's continuing just to,
Certainly
block the opportunities.
Those are the words coming from the mayors and the council members every city council I've visited.
And if I could, you all know the importance of these things is we're trying to leverage match dollars that the commissioners have set aside for broadband to bring in grant dollars. So the ability to really make this a robust broadband infrastructure is absolutely imperative to get some of these grant dollars. $10 million alone will get us so far, but it will not get us to where we need to. So when this was concepted, it was always intended to leverage state and federal grant dollars, critical to the success of getting the broadband reach that you all hope to be able to get in our county.
So based on the changes, are we open to signing this?
And if you would prefer, we could make the changes and then add it to as a by leave as your 11 o'clock meeting today. That's preferred.
I think, or I'm happy to have a motion and we just
Okay.
open it up and.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the drafting and signing of a letter to be signed by a majority of the board at other than open public meeting, be addressed to Mark Visconti, the Washington State Broadband Office Director, regarding Washington State Broadband Office's scoring of round 2 of ARP infrastructure acceleration grant applications as discussed by the board with the changes as stated.
Second.
A motion and a second for the signing of a letter at other than an open public meeting that will include the changes that we just discussed. I will need to open it up since we're gonna take action to the public. So is there anyone that would like to make public testimony on this motion? No one in the room or no one online? Second call for anyone wishing to provide public testimony on this motion.
No one online.
Final call for anyone wishing to testify? Just gonna confirm no one online?
No one online.
Okay, and no one in the room?
Can I ask a question? So this will be sent to all of our area legislators, correct?
Yes.
We'll have them on the CC.
And the Commerce Director.
Commerce Director in the AG's office. Do you know anybody in the AG's office? Corporate? No. Just asking.
Okay, any other comments?
Disowned already.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes unanimously.
Since we joined that.
Thank you, Arian.
So this is
I have-
ARP.
Oh, you do, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's okay, just for my own.
It's state.
Just was curious.
Absolutely. Okay, so I have an item that just came to my attention yesterday, that I talked to Justin Johnson. When Justin came and spoke to us about expanding the school project on the Initiative for Student Wellness, School-Based Screening, Brief Intervention, and Referral to Treatment Program, if I can say all that, the SBIRT program. That we had talked about potentially East Valley, but East Valley was not one of those districts that we were adding. There has been a couple of incidents over the course of the summer that I think is putting it at a high need. Since it's children that are under 18, I don't want to discuss in public. But I think the Valley would be considering to use their ARP dollars to fund the program, to get it up and going. We would partner with them, like we are with the other school districts, to provide the licensing agreement and the oversight and all of that. So Justin wanted to get kind of a head nod from the board before he could, really go talk to the city council in the Valley to say that we'd be willing to move forward with this. And then it would come back to a contract agreement to us as well. So I just wanted to check and see. And East Valley is one of the school districts along, Riverside is going to be getting, the program's already scheduled to go further. But with school starting, and East Valley is one of the school districts that is also affected by the fire. Their students, as they go up to Mount Spokane. But it's interesting how the districts work, but some of those students in that district are affected as well. So I think it would be really good timing. They have had, in the course of the last year, 6 different incidents. I mean, I know last year at the start of school, there was the 2 girls that were killed on Trent as they were going to school. And then there's been 4 other incidents since then that I think helping that school district would be key. So
I think it's great. Let's do it.
thank you.
Yes.
And with school starting, that's why, just like I said, it just kind of came to my attention yesterday from the superintendent. And, with school starting and trying to get it, up and going, and then Justin will be able to talk to the city council, I think next Tuesday. So, okay, thank you. Okay, and you have one more?
I do, just to follow up on the rental assistance discussion from yesterday regarding trying to find some ways to help the those that were impacted and have been impacted and continue to not quite know whether they've been impacted more fully. We have done some additional research into the rental assistance dollars, which are under the ERA 2 program. Those are funds that we have about 2.9 million actually available. Some initial looks is they would be eligible to be used under what's called a financial hardship, which this is clearly a financial hardship to the community. We would be able to identify those areas that are impacted by the Wildland fires. It does have the up to 80% AMI limitation on it, but likely these are going to be situations where people do not have insurance, homeowners insurance, and probably would fall into that category. So we do believe there's flexibility within the program to accommodate this. And so what we're going to be doing is reaching out to SNAP, who's currently doing that on behalf of Spokane County, to see whether they could incorporate that into this. And that would be through a simple contract amendment with them, so we could make that so. But I wanted to update the commissioners on the research that's been done by the team, Jeff and Heather specifically. So it looks like that is a good opportunity for us to be able to provide some of that support. So once we reach out to SNAP and talk through some of the operational logistics, we'll come back to you and let you know whether it's a go. We don't anticipate there's any challenges with that, but that would be some really good available resources.
So at what point will you feel comfortable enough, because I spent time on the phone last night with Mayor Cooper, clear up until about 10 o'clock. And we talked about this program and the opportunity or the potential for it. And so she is planning on holding a town hall meeting tomorrow to try and start to disseminate information to people that are impacted. So my question is, can we be secure enough with being able to use those funds to allow her to share that with people that are going to show up tomorrow, and at least create a path forward for renters that, maybe homeowners, but I think the biggest thing is uninsured renters is the biggest risk and stuff. So is that a possibility?
I do think so. Yeah, we're shooting to try to get some information back from SNAP today. So we'll be striving to try to hit that and be able to have information shared by tomorrow.
Okay, that'd be great.
And they would still have to meet the different income criteria.
Different criteria and stuff, so we gotta make
sure
that
we're
they're aware of
clear.
that,
Yes.
yeah.
And we also understand that there is the ability to provide hotel, motel sorts of assistance as well. Because while they may be displaced from their home, they may be displaced from a rental unit or multifamily unit, we know the state of our rentals right now, there's not a lot out there. So it very well may need to be going to hotels and motels too. So we gotta, again, figure out the logistics of that. How do we make that happen with them? But we'll strive to do that, Commissioner French.
And I guess the other question is, how do we coordinate with the Red Cross who are helping those people right now for them to know what's available so they can help, because they're kind of doing that wraparound service right now for them, so.
We'll share that. We'll share that with SNAP to have some sort of outreach with the Red Cross as well.
Yeah, so, and Commissioner Cooney is right. The Red Cross is prepared to help financially. And then when I raised the potential of this, they said that would be great because that'll free up our resources to be able to address other issues and stuff. But, you know, that coordination, I think, I agree, is critical to make sure that we're not, both trying to cover the same need, but also consuming resources and stuff. So, yeah, I address, so one other issue, and we talked a little bit about it yesterday, and I did talk to Chris, and I think Commissioner Cooney was there as well, as about, Scott Chesney has volunteered building and planning resources to help get permits through the process and get people back into construction as soon as possible. And so we talked about it yesterday. I don't know that we actually gave any really kind of a head nod to pursuing that, but I did talk, as I said, to Mayor Cooper last night, and they have one part-time plan reviewer and one part-time inspector, and they will be overwhelmed quickly by the task of trying to permit all the homes that need to be replaced and stuff. So I asked Chris if he would at least draft up or take one of our other agreements that we provide to some of the smaller communities and, put Medical Lake in there and see if we can at least formalize that relationship so that we can establish a process. And again, maybe that's something that, if we feel comfortable doing that, Mayor Cooper can inform people tomorrow that, that's a resource that's available and stuff. So that would be one thing that I requested the group is to authorize Chris and Scott to move forward with that, because I don't think we took a formal action on that yesterday.
We didn't, we were kind of still waiting.
Still waiting to hear back, yeah.
So one question I have is, is that something, and I'm looking to the two guys behind you, that the feds through FEMA, that as, part of recovery, that those, if they track their hours and stuff, that could be part of the FEMA request?
Reimbursement? Yeah.
Only if you get public assistance. Like right now, my understanding is we're just on the assistance for the actual fighting of the fires. And then in the future, we'll hopefully receive public assistance. I think it's a long shot to get the individual assistance. And a lot of what we're talking about falls on that individual level. And just by way of reminder, Pat said yesterday, the last individual in the state was OSO. That was such a dramatic event.
So
It just was a thought I had.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
But it'll be several weeks before we know those declarations one way or the other.
And the text that I got from Scott made it sound like you could do it within his existing resources, so that there wouldn't be an additional cost in terms of the general fund or demand on the general fund. But you raise a good question: is how if there is a demand or if there's a resource pressure, how do we cover that? But I guess I yield to Scott's recommendation and stuff.
No, I just know that as I was over at DEM and, talking with the sheriff and, that for FEMA, you need to track everything and be very clear.
Yeah.
And so even for this, I'd want to probably have us track, so that way then we know what the need was.
We can't provide it free of charge.
No, I would.
Whether if FEMA can fund it, that's great, but we cannot legally provide it to them without billing for the service.
Well, I'm assuming they're gonna pay for a permit, whether they pay it to the city or they pay it to us. They're gonna pay a fee for a permit and stuff, so that they can, so I wasn't assuming that it was gonna be free, no. So, then, one other item.
And then, do you mind, Scott, go first, or?
Go ahead.
I would just, I'm confident we can come up with an interlocal agreement to be able to support them with resources. And as was mentioned, there'll be building permit fees. We'll figure out some way to share those, because if they only have a part-time person, they're not envisioning all this inspection fees and building permit fees to come in. So we'll be able to figure out a way to appropriately share and reflect the work that we're doing. So I'm confident we can get that done. And a lot of that, like Jeff was saying, will come through the recovery phase as well, so.
So then.
I got a quick question. On a previous item, can you back up a little bit? That'd be okay?
Okay, sure.
Just to clarify on the SNAP issue, is that ERA rental assistance money already available to people today through SNAP?
It is.
We may want to suggest that they be invited to the meeting as is, if it's already something that people can apply for today. Just a thought.
Well, but I think that's why we want to coordinate through the Red Cross, because the Red Cross is actually the one who's accumulating who needs the help and what help they need, because they're helping them right now.
Right.
I think Commissioner French wants to be able to just state it at the town hall that this is going to be an opportunity that they can further go to. But like right now, we're still in just fighting the fire. We're not in that recovery phase yet for, which is why the Red Cross is really the one handling it.
Right.
For us to be able to identify the people that can go to seek that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I think that's why it's important for them to go through the Red Cross at this point, and for us to have SNAP coordinate with the Red Cross, that they can do that warm handoff.
Yeah.
Agreed, yes.
Instead of just having people individually go, which I think is still, part of what the Red Cross said yesterday. It's like, we need people, even if they, don't need their services, to go through the Red Cross so they can really identify who's been impacted.
One of the things they shared with me on Sunday when I was there was that they've got a lot of people that have signed up, have found, motels or hotels that they're staying at, and they come back to the shelter for meals so that they don't have to pay for meals. So there is still that linkage with those people, but I agree with Commissioner Cooney. I mean, you need one point of contact, and it really should be the Red Cross. But, if in my conversation with the lead out there, and I apologize for not remembering her name. Betsy, thank you. Is that they are positioned to direct the resources as long as they know that there are resources there for them to direct. And if it happens outside them, then that's where they start to get into trouble, because they're trying to double cover the same problem. So I agree, it really should be coordinated through the Red Cross.
Yes.
So one more, since we got a vein going here. I know that we all sit on different boards and commissions. And so one of those boards that's going to be actively involved in this that I sit on and currently chair is a Clean Air Agency. And so we have requirements from EPA and the State Department of Ecology that we have to adhere to with regard to cleanup, asbestos removal, and new construction and stuff. So we are working now between the agency and ecology and our legal counsel and the EPA to try and marshal resources to come in and help folks. There are already containers showing up on site since the evacuation level has been lowered down to level 1. The property owners are trying to start to clean up their property so they can get ready for new construction. Well, the problem is, if you've got asbestos, you can't legally do the cleanup. And so EPA is now, as of this morning, saying we might orchestrate a district-wide cleanup that we do on behalf of the property owners, so that, we don't have to worry about them, getting the hazmat suits and all that kind of stuff to clean up. But the other part of it is just making sure that we're not throwing a bunch of asbestos in the air that's going to become another layer of problems for neighbors that might have survived the fire but might not survive the asbestos contamination. My point is, you know, if you sit on a board that is going to have an involvement with the cleanup and the rebuild of the communities, start working with them to see, you know, what can we do? What change, or what can we implement to be able to make it easier for people to get through this process? Because the one thing that I was really, and I shared this with Scott Windsor this morning, I don't want a story in the newspaper saying, we're trying to rebuild our house, but government's in our way. You know, let's figure out a way to get out of the way and help people, as opposed to trying to say, you know, this is the way we've always done it, and we're gonna continue doing that way now. Be creative, you know, what can you do to help? So that's my last thing. Thank you very much. I'm done, tapped out.
At least for a moment.
For a moment. Okay, that time has passed.
I do think the health district, you know, plays a role with
The
permitting.
health
and
district would
such,
be
so-
another one, especially for water wells.
Yep.
I mean, you know, that's the other part of it, is wells can become contaminated because of the fire. And so the health district's got a role rebuilding septic systems, you know, there's a lot to be done.
Okay, any other miscellaneous items to come before the board? Sure. Feel like second call?
No, I'm good. Like I said, I'm tapped out.
Okay, then, we
Well,
do.
now that you mention it, no.
Final call for Al. Say no more Alisms.
I'm good.
So with that, we do have our special meeting that will take place at 11 o'clock, just right back here in this room. Again, we will suspend the open public testimony, so we will not be having open public testimony at that special meeting. And canceling, at the 11 o'clock, we will officially be canceling our 2 o'clock meeting. That didn't happen yesterday, so that'll be part of the motions that we make as part of the items at the 11 o'clock. So, anything else, Chris, that I need to make sure I stated?
I would just say for the record, the special meetings generally don't have the open public testimony, so we're not actually canceling it, it is simply not part of that one. It'll be available to the public at the next regularly scheduled legislative meeting on a 2 p.m. agenda.
Great, thank you. Okay, with nothing else coming before the board at this time, then I will adjourn this meeting and we'll see everybody back for the special meeting at 11 o'clock.